Let us start with the chapter Polynomials. So this chapter is a part of algebra, and algebra contains about 4 chapters. You can see there are polynomials, pair of linear equations, quadratic equations, and arithmetic progression. And for chapter polynomials, you can see about 3 to 5 marks question in your CBSE board exams. Alright, so what are basically polynomials is that these are algebraic expressions, which means they consist of both numbers and variables. You can see that the plus and the minus sign separates this algebraic expression or the polynomial into 3 different parts. So these are known as the parts or the terms of the polynomial. So the final term is known as the constant term, where you see there are only numbers and there is no variables. So this is known as constant term. Why? Because these are having a fixed value. The value of -5 is always -5 and it doesn't change, right? So that is why this term is known as constant term. In the other two terms, you can see there are variables. So here these alphabets are known as variables. So tell me, why are they known as variables? Variables mean something that vary or change in their value. So variables or these alphabets can take any value, and therefore these are known as variables. So for these variables, you can see numbers on top of it, which are known as the powers or exponents. Alright, so here you can see the exponent of x is 2, and for this one, there is nothing written. That means the exponent or the power of x here is 1. Alright. So along with these variables, you can see numbers written with it. And these are known as coefficients. So the coefficient of x square is 3 here and that of x is 4. So for example, if you have another polynomial with x square plus 3, the coefficient of x square here is not written. That means there is only one x square, or therefore the coefficient of x square here is 1. And here you can see there is no x term. That means there is 0 x term, or you can say that the coefficient of x is 0 here. Alright, so let us move to understanding which one of this is a polynomial. So the important thing you should know about polynomials is that the power of these variables should always be whole numbers. So it cannot be fractions or it cannot be negative numbers as well. X raised to 1 by 2 means it is root of x. So this is not a polynomial. When does a power becomes negative? So x raised to -1 means 1 by x, or the x is in the denominator. That means the variable is in the denominator. So in this case also the polynomial, we do not call it as a polynomial. So here in these 4 options, you can see that there is root of x here, which means this is not a polynomial. In option B, you can see the power of x is a fraction, therefore this too is not a polynomial. In option C, you can see that there is a root here, and you can see that the root x is also present in the denominator, which means this too is not a polynomial. In case of option D, you can see that the root is just for the numbers, and you can see the power of x are whole numbers, which means this is a polynomial, right? So based on the number of terms, there are different types of polynomials. Suppose you have only one term. For example, your polynomial is 2x square. So there is only one term, which means this is a monomial. If there are two terms, for example, you have it as 3x plus 5. Here you can see the plus sign is separating the two different terms, 3x and 5. So here this is referred to as a binomial because it has two different terms. Suppose your polynomial has three terms, for example, 2x square plus 3x plus 5. Here you can see there are three different terms, so therefore this polynomial is referred to as trinomial. So this is one type of classification of the polynomials based on the terms. Next type of classification is based on the degree. So firstly, let us understand what is degree of a polynomial. Suppose we have a polynomial 3x minus 5. So degree of the polynomial means it is the highest power of x. So here the power of x is 1, which means the degree of this polynomial is going to be 1. If it is 2x square plus 3x, so here you can see that the power of x is 1 and 2. So the highest power is 2, which means the degree of the polynomial is 2. Suppose we have the polynomial as 2x cubed plus 5. So here the degree of the polynomial is 3 because the power of x is 3. So degree of the polynomial just means the highest power of the variable or the x. So based on the degree of the polynomial, we are going to classify the polynomials as linear. Linear means degree 1. So your example is 3x minus 5. So here the power of the variable or the x is 1, which means it is a linear polynomial. Why is it called a linear polynomial? Because you can see that the graph is in the shape of a straight line. So that is why this is referred to as linear polynomial. And for quadratic, it means it is of degree 2. For example, 2x square plus 5. So here you can see that the power of the variable, that is power of x, is 2, which means it is quadratic polynomial. And here you can see it is U-shaped or parabola. The graph is in the shape of U, or you can call it parabola shaped. Alright, so you can just remember it as quadratic is U-shaped graph. Next comes the cubic. Cubic means the polynomial of degree 3. So you can have 2x cubed plus x square plus 4 or minus 4. So here you can see the highest power is 3. So it is referred to as cubic. So x cube is referred to as cubic polynomial. So here you can see it is of the shape of a wave. The next is, what are the zeros of the polynomial? So basically, we are learning these algebraic expressions of polynomials just to find the value of x, right? So the value of x is referred to as zeros. It can also be called as solutions, or it can also be called as roots. So remember, I have said in the algebra, there are several other chapters. So basically, for a polynomial, the value of x is referred to as zeros of the polynomial. In the next chapter, linear equations, you will see that it is referred to as the value of x and y is referred to as the solutions of a linear equation. And in the other chapter, the value of x is now known as the roots of the quadratic equation. The value of x makes this polynomial equal to 0. Suppose I am taking the value of x as 1 here. For this polynomial, I am going to substitute 1 for the value of x here. So we have this polynomial as 1 square minus 3 into 1 minus 4. So I can get 1 square is 1 minus 3 into 1 is 3 and minus 4. So you can see that 1 minus 3 minus 4 is minus 7. So 1 minus 7 is negative 6, which means this is not making my polynomial 0, or I can say that x is equal to 1 or 1 is not the 0 of my polynomial. Suppose I substitute the value of x as minus 1. So you can see that minus 1 the whole square minus 3 into minus 1 minus 4. So we have minus 1 the whole square is 1 again. Minus into minus. So that is positive. So 3 into 1 is plus 3. And you have minus 4. Here you can see 1 plus 3 is 4 and 4 minus 4 is 0. So here you can clearly see that when I put the value of x as negative 1, it is making my polynomial 0. Therefore, I can say that x is equal to minus 1 is the 0 of the polynomial, or this is the value of x for this given polynomial. Alright, so the value of x which makes the polynomial 0 is known as the 0 of the polynomial. Now, how will you find the zeros of the polynomial from this graph? As we have said, zeros of the polynomial means the value of x. So that means it is your x coordinate, or it is the number of times the graph touches your x coordinate. So in the first graph, you can see this line touches the x-axis at one point, which means there is only 1 0 for this linear equation. You can see it is a linear polynomial because the graph is in the shape of straight line. So here the number of zeros is 1. In the second graph, you can see it is U-shaped, which means it is a quadratic polynomial. And for this too, you can see it is touching the x-axis at just one point, which means here also the number of zeros is just 1. If we move to the next graph, you can see this graph of the wave shape touches the x-axis at 3 different points, which means there are 3 zeros or 3 values of x for this given polynomial. In this case, you can see it is not touching the x-axis, which means there is no solution or value of x, or we can say there is no zeros of the polynomial. And here, if I mark these as 0, 1 and 2, I can say in this graph, there is 1 0 for the polynomial and the 0 is 2. 0 means it is the value of x. So here you can clearly see that the value of x coordinate or the x is 2 here. So which means the 0 of this polynomial is 2. So here also you can see the value of x here. This is also having only 1 0 and the value of x here is 1. So you can see there is only 1 0 for this quadratic polynomial and the 0 is 1. And for this cubic polynomial, you can see that if I mark it as -1 and -2, +1, +2, you can say that the zeros of this polynomial are -2, 1 and 2. It is touching the x-axis at -2, 1 and 2, which means the zeros of this cubic polynomial are -2, 1 and 2. So here then there are no zeros. So I hope you understood how to find the number of zeros and what are the zeros of this polynomial from the graph itself. So let us discuss one more sample question paper question. So here you are given a linear polynomial like this and you are asked for the number of zeros and what is the zero. So here, since it is a line, you can see that it is touching the x-axis at this point, and so you can see there is only 1 0. So your option A and option D is already gone. You are having 1 0 only. And now tell me which is the 0. 0 means it is the value of x, which means here the value of x is 3. So the 0 is 3. So your answer is option B, 1 0 and the 0 is 3. Alright. So next is maximum number of zeros. So if we consider the quadratic polynomial, you can see that the shape of the graph is in the shape of parabola, or you can say it is U-shaped. So in the first graph, you can see that it is touching the x-axis at 2 points. So you can see there are 2 zeros for this polynomial. In the second graph, you can see that it is touching the graph or the x-axis at only 1 point, which means there is only 1 0 for this polynomial. Here, the graph or the parabola is not touching the x-axis, which means there is no zeros or there is no solution for this polynomial. So, you can say that for the quadratic polynomial, either you can have 2 zeros, 1 0 or no zeros. That means the maximum number of zeros it can have is 2. So, you can say that quadratic polynomial means it is of degree 2. The degree of quadratic polynomial is 2. So you can say that the maximum number of zeros is equal to the degree of the polynomial. Similarly, you can say that for a linear polynomial, the maximum number of zeros should be equal to the degree of the polynomial, which is equal to 1. So, for a linear polynomial, you can say it can have no zeros or 1 0. So, in terms of cubic, you can say there can be no zeros, 1 0 20 or 30, not more than 3. So the maximum number of zeros is equal to 3 for a cubic polynomial because it is related to the degree of the polynomial. I hope the concept is clear till here. I am Dr. Fatima Shahzadi. If you would like to join my online sessions, just type online tuition in the WhatsApp link given in the description. Thank you.